Hi there, this is Geraldine Ryan-Lush, and I'm going to read a few pages from the beginning of this novel, The Gravel Pit Kids. This is the first edition of this novel. I'm going to read from the second edition, which is this one. It's the second edition. I'm going to read from that one. Either one can be obtained anywhere. This is the first edition. Back cover. And I'm going to read the synopsis from the back cover of the new edition because the first edition, there were a couple of sentences there that should have been there in the first edition. But anyway, the second edition is the synopsis. It's the same story in both books, same story in both editions, so no changes there. David Fuller's only best friend, Kenny Finney, is a smelly outcast who can't read or write, steals, lives in a gravel pit trailer home, and gets caught by the cops all the time. But he plays the best game of street hockey ever and would give you his heart if he could. One day, David's life changes, and he says goodbye to Kenny Finney and the carefree life he's known. His parents are moving him to a better life and want him away from the unsuitable Finneys. Then tragedy strikes. Kenny's house out in Brookens burns down, and most of his family are dead. No one knows where Kenny is, and no one cares until a determined 12-year-old boy with pain and hope in his heart takes it upon himself to travel hundreds of miles alone to find, dead or alive, the street kid nobody wanted, and whose tragic plight awakens a startled awareness. So I'm going to read from the beginning of the book, a few pages. The book won a Canada Book Award, and it's a favorite of readers and of all ages, really. It's been praised for its appeal to all ages. Adults especially also like the book. Okay, so I'm going to read from the first, maybe even the first chapter. We'll see how it goes. Well, they did it finally. They sold the house. The place where me and Kenny played road hockey all the time and captured spiders in a bottle and played knockdowns on the floors in the large kitchen, skirting my mother's feet. They said it was for the best and that it would be exciting. I guess it would. It would be a blast moving to St. John's, but the hard part was leaving Kenny behind. I worried about Kenny. He wasn't like the other guys. He didn't have very much, but he was my best friend anyway, my very best friend. We were still working on our clubhouse, framed up in a corner of our backyard by a big maple tree. So, when are you moving? Kenny asked. He stuffed some rags back in his pocket along with 2 Star Trek posters and all the other junk he had found that day. Kenny was an expert at junk. A regular junkyard dog, although he didn't have anything to haul it around in. Mostly he just stuffed what he could in his pockets and up under his jacket. And what he couldn't carry, he got Robert and Chris, his brothers, to help him log home. They usually left it lying around his ground outside their house, or even in the house if there was room. Trouble was, when they left it outside their house, there was no fence, and most of it would end up getting lost again. So then they would have to go looking for more. It was a full-time occupation with the Finneys, looking for junk. "Well, when are you moving?" Kenny asked again. "In a few weeks," I told him. "Mom says not soon enough. She can't wait to get out of this hick town. My Aunt Angie says this place is nothing but a God-forsaken hole. But then again, Mom says any place that's not littered with shopping malls and country burrs is a God-forsaken hole to Aunt Angie. Come on, let's go finish the roof." I grabbed up the nails and Kenny picked up the hammer. Then we raced across the yard and out into the back meadow. Kenny always ran a little slower than me. I used to make fun of him for running slower, calling him Gramps and Slowpoke and all kinds of names. But I stopped making fun of him the day we raced for the hockey puck. One day, about a year ago, 2 high school guys left one way over at the edge of the pond. They must have given it a mighty smack, for there, among all the ash-covered slivers of ice in the corner of the pond, lay the newest, coolest, blackest hockey puck we had ever seen. Kenny and I made a run for it. It was a long pond, the longest one in all of Brookens. Kenny started out strong, but I knew I could easily beat him. I always had before, but there was something about Kenny's eyes that day as he slowed down, like he knew he wasn't going to win anyway, so what did it matter? I slowed down to his pace and slower, breathing real hard like I was really beat out. "I can't run another inch, Kenny," I gasped as I flopped to the ground. "Guess you get the hockey puck." I said it like it was the most ordinary thing in the world, like, Kenny Finney won races every day or something. Then I slouched by the pond and made out I was tying up my laces. When I sneaked a glance at Kenny, there he was, gazing over at the edge of the pond and then back at the hockey puck, a big grin on his dirty face and his tired eyes with a hint of a sparkle. I felt extra happy that day, and my throat got a little tight. Me and Kenny, well, we had been friends since I can remember. Mom and Dad were always trying to keep me away from him at first. They said I was sure to pick up something. Couldn't escape it in that filthy place, they said. You see, Kenny's place weren't exactly from Better Homes and Gardens. They didn't keep a clean house. And they weren't strict about rules either. In fact, they had no rules. Kenny could pretty well do what he felt like. Go to school when he felt like it, come home when he felt like it, eat when he felt like it, sleep when he felt like it. Kenny's mom wasn't home much. Nobody seemed to know where she went or what she did. And his dad just sat around wearing a wife-beater shirt, what the guys called T-shirts with the sleeves cut out. There were so many of them, I figured, but she, Kenny's mom, just got fed up and didn't want to cook or clean. Mom said she heard they were on social assistance, the welfare, and all their money went on bingo and all-night poker games and parties. It was disgraceful, she said. Those children should be taken from them and be put in decent homes. I once asked her how come we couldn't take one of them, like maybe Kenny. She looked at me like I had 2 heads and said, where in the name of God would she put Kenny? In the attic? She had enough troubles as it was, trying to look after me and Carla in a big old house that leaked like a basket, and your father only home every few days. Get a lick of sense. I suggested that maybe she could put Kenny in the attic. He wouldn't mind. He was used to roughing it. A lot of times in the summer, he slept outside more than in, just to get some time alone. And we would have a great time making the attic into a bedroom. But Mom didn't answer me. and made sure she never brought up the plight of the Finneys being disgraceful again. Kenny scrambled up the steps of the old rickety grey stepladder we had hammered together. "Hand me up those shingles," he said. I reached for the bundle of shingles that were lying on the grass. They were brand new, not like the other pieces we had found on the beach that were full of holes, and had been kicking around for some time. "Where did you get these?" I asked. "Oh, I found them down by the wharf." Kenny had a bunch of nails in his mouth, and he looked just like a scampy little chipmunk. I didn't bother to ask him any more questions, because I had an idea how Kenny had found them. He had sneaked in someone's backyard again after dark, and swiped them from their shed. Kenny always knows whose backyard is open after dark, and who is building a new shed or patio or fence, because then there are usually shingles and loose boards and nails and things lying around. Our clubhouse, the Martian Outpost that we were working on, was all built from things Kenny and me had found. Only I didn't find them the way Kenny did. I just saved bits of things that Dad didn't need anymore. Things from home hardware or Kent's he had bought that measured too long and were left over. Bits of gyprock and corner strips and wood paneling and things. After we had the clubhouse framed up, Dad had come out one day and sized it up and said it was very impressive, that it surely was a sharp-looking cabin for something made from scraps. And then he had looked at us in that "I know what you've been up to" way that he had sometimes. He looked hard at Kenny. Dad knew the score on Kenny. Everyone in Brookens knew the score on Kenny. The only difference was Dad always looked the other way. "I guess we'll let Mario and Stefan come in this evening," I told him. The Martian Outpost was starting to look pretty cool. I was proud of it. I wanted to show it off to the other guys. They were always jeering and saying that anything half built by a Finney had to be nothing more than an Indian wigwam. But like Dad always said, there's an art to making an Indian wigwam, if you wanted to get it right, that is. Kenny took off his cap and started unrolling the felt that went underneath the shingles. "Yeah," he said, "I guess we'll put the carpet down tomorrow." "What carpet?" I asked. I had a feeling he had something up his sleeve. He went down unrolling the felt, his dirty fingers tucking into corners, like an eagle's claws on a fence post. "Mrs. Peddle down the road got some new carpet today. I saw the truck." Mrs. Peddle always throws out some really good stuff. What if she doesn't? "Oh, we'll find something. Suppose we go to the dump. There's always brand new tiles and stuff lying around in the dump." The dump was about 3 miles down the road, away from all the houses. The smell would knock you over, but if a fellow could hold his nose with one hand long enough and pick through things with the other, who knows what you might find there. That's what the Finneys did. But Kenny didn't seem to mind the smell at all. He was that used to it. They walked down just about every day, but I wasn't allowed to go. Once I sneaked down there with Kenny when he said he had seen some Untouchable comics, and Mom had a fit and grounded me for a week. That's when she said if I didn't watch myself, I would be forbidden to play with Kenny Finney again, and that would be that. She had no intention of having me turn to a juvenile delinquent just because I didn't want to play with anybody else, only Kenny Finney. Kenny finished hammering the felt while I passed him the nails, and then he sat on the edge of the bed, on the edge of the roof, dangling his legs. "I guess you're not going to be working on the clubhouse so much now if you're moving," he said. He started scratching his head again, digging in real deep like he couldn't scratch it enough. Every day, Kenny had a different place for scratching. One day it would be his arms, next day would be his legs, or another day would be his feet. He would scratch his feet by rubbing his boots together, making a squeaking sound like a cricket. He always wore rubber boots, even on the hottest kind of days. But the most scratching he always did was on his head. He would spend half the day alone scratching his head, by the time he was finished with the crown and the sides and his favourite, the back of his neck. Funny, but I had forgotten all about the moving bit. Well, It won't be for another few weeks anyway, I told Kenny. We'll probably have the Martian Outpost finished by that time. And when I'm gone, I leave you to be boss over it. Remember, no one can claim it, because it's inside the fence. Mario and Stephen can't tear it down or anything, and you can come back sometimes and visit. I put my shoulders back and stood up straight, trying to look important, like a politician or someone on TV. Maybe we can have a special ceremony or party or something and christen the clubhouse, like they do when they launch boats. That would be fun, hey? Kenny stopped scratching and looked at me. His eyes had that tired look again. Yeah, I guess so, I said. Sometimes I wished Kenny had something more to say, or laughed more or something. Mom was calling through the kitchen window that supper was ready. I asked him in for some, like I always did, but this time he didn't seem in the mood. He just said, "See ya," as he scrambled down the ladder and walked slowly out the yard. And this is the first chapter of The Gravel Pit Kids, shown here in the first edition. This is the second edition. And like I said, it can be purchased anywhere. So, I hope you enjoyed that. And I wish you, it's a treat for Christmas. I wish you a happy and healthy and very Merry Christmas. And I will see you soon. Thank you so very much for reading. Thank you very much for listening and looking. Bye for now.